Must leave. Not should. Not consider. Just, must. And the way it's being described, controlled voice, no visible emotion, no public scene, that's what makes this story feel more serious than dramatic. Because when King Felipe VI snaps, it doesn't look like anger. It looks like a line being drawn that was probably there all along. Now I'm going to be very honest with you from the start. I don't fully believe the snaps part of this headline. It's catchy. It gets clicks. But it hides what's actually more interesting. What if this wasn't a reaction, but a decision that had been building quietly for a long time? The detail everyone missed. The reports don't focus on shouting. They don't describe chaos. They don't even give emotional context. They focus on finality. And that's the giveaway. Because real emotional reactions are messy. This feels structured. 45-second mark, CTA, natural insert. If you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Because moments like this aren't about one headline, they're about the pattern behind it, and that's where things get real. Let's address, Christian, honestly. We need to ground this for a second. There is no widely confirmed official record of a figure named Christian being publicly ordered to leave Spain by the royal family. So instead of treating this like a verified confrontation, let's treat it for what it behaves like. A narrative signal. Something that spreads because it feels believable. And that's actually more revealing. Because people don't latch onto stories randomly. They latch onto what fits the perception of how power works. My hot take: you might push back on this. I don't think this story is about a person. I think it's about a boundary being enforced. A reminder, subtle, but sharp, that not everyone gets to stay close to Princess Leonor as her role becomes more serious. Because proximity to her, that's not just personal, it's political. The word, must, that's everything. Let's break that one word down. Must. No negotiation, no flexibility, no public back and forth. In royal language, that's not emotional. That's institutional. It means the decision isn't being debated anymore. It's being executed. The pattern is starting to feel familiar. Think about everything we've been noticing. Increased control around Leonor's image. More structured appearances. Less ambiguity in messaging. And now this narrative appears, someone being removed. Even if it's not literally confirmed. It fits the direction. And that's why it's sticking. The Kate Middleton comparison, but let's be real. When Kate Middleton entered royal life, everything felt like it was gradually aligned. There was time, adjustment, space to evolve. This feels faster, sharper, less forgiving, and that tells me something has changed in how these situations are handled. My personal reaction, human marker. I'll tell you exactly what went through my mind when I first saw this. Not, wow, drama. But, that sounds like a system tightening. Like the window is closing. Like the margin for flexibility around Leonor's personal life is getting smaller. And honestly, that's more significant than any headline. The Mr. Beast comparison, this will make sense. Look at Mr. Beast, when something doesn't fit his direction anymore, it disappears from the narrative quickly. No long explanation, just, gone. Now scale that mindset up to a monarchy. Except instead of content, it's people. That's the level of precision we might be looking at. The hidden cost no one wants to say. Let's be real for a second. If stories like this reflect even a fraction of reality, then the cost isn't just for the person being removed. It's also for Leonor, because it means her world is becoming more filtered, more controlled, more selective, and that affects everything. So what's actually happening here? Here's my honest conclusion. This isn't about a king losing his temper. It's about a system reinforcing its boundaries at a very specific moment in Leonor's transition. And whether Christian is real, symbolic, or misunderstood. The message is clear. Not everyone moves forward. What you should watch next. Forget the headline. Watch the pattern. Does Leonor's environment become more controlled? Do we see fewer unknown faces around her? Does the tone shift toward more formality, less personal openness? Because those details will confirm whether this was just noise, or part of something bigger. Final reflection, let it sit. So let me ask you something. Did King Felipe VI really snap? Or are we just seeing the moment where quiet control finally became visible enough for people to notice? Because if it's the second one, then this wasn't sudden, it was inevitable, and that's a very different kind of story. And the more you think about it, the less this feels like an isolated incident, and the more it feels like a threshold moment. The moment after the message. Because once a phrase like, must leave, enters the narrative, whether confirmed or not, something shifts. Not publicly at first, but internally, quietly, and I think that's the part people underestimate. These kinds of messages aren't always meant for us. They're meant for the people inside the circle. The ones who understand exactly what it implies without needing an explanation. The inner circle effect. Let's slow this down. Imagine you're part of that environment, close to Princess Leonor, even loosely. And you hear a story like this gaining traction. What does it do? It changes how you move, how you speak, how close you're willing to stand to the line. Because suddenly, the boundaries aren't just understood. They're felt. My thought human marker. I keep coming back to this one idea. Power doesn't always need to act loudly. Sometimes it just needs to be believed. And once people believe a line exists, even if they never see it enforced publicly, they adjust themselves. That's when control becomes almost invisible. Back to King Felipe VI, but look closer. Philippe's public image has always been about restraint, measured decisions, stability. So a story framing him as snapping, that doesn't align perfectly, but a story framing him as quietly enforcing a boundary, that fits. And sometimes, the story we're given exaggerates the emotion, to distract from the structure underneath. The real function of this narrative. Here's where my thinking landed after sitting with this for a while. This kind of story works as a signal, not just a report. A signal that says, the system is tightening, the expectations are rising, the flexibility is decreasing, and most importantly, the transition around Leonor is accelerating. The Kate Middleton contrast, final reality check. When Kate Middleton was entering her long-term role, there was space for public adaptation. Moments of uncertainty didn't feel like immediate decisions. But here, everything feels faster, more decisive, less forgiving. And that tells me something has shifted, not just in Spain, but in how modern monarchies manage perception in real time. The pressure around Leonor is changing. Let's bring it back to what really matters. Princess Leonor, because every narrative like this, real or not, reshapes the environment around her. And right now, that environment is becoming more defined, more structured, less open-ended, which means her personal life is no longer just personal. It's becoming strategic, the risk nobody mentions. There's a downside to this kind of control. And it's subtle. The tighter the system becomes, the more pressure builds inside it. And pressure doesn't always show immediately, but when it does, it tends to show in moments people weren't expecting. The Mr. Beast parallel, one last angle. Think about how Mr. Beast keeps his brand consistent. Every change is intentional, every shift is calculated. Now imagine trying to maintain that level of control across real lives, real relationships, real emotions. That's the complexity here, and that's why moments like this, or stories like this, matter more than they seem. So what are we actually watching? Not just a rumor, not just a headline, but a system revealing its edges. The point where flexibility ends, and structure takes over. Final reflection, let it stay with them. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Was this story about someone being told to leave? Or was it about everyone else being reminded that staying is never unconditional? Because if it's the second one, then this wasn't just about one person. It was about the rules. And now that those rules feel more visible, we're all watching Leonor's story differently. And once that shift happens, you don't go back to seeing it the same way again.